Well, it's another day, which means it is time for another season preview. This time around, we got the Boston Bruins. And the Bruins are coming off of kind of a weird spot. When you look at the last 3 years for Boston, so much has changed. Let's hop right in. But first and foremost, the 2025-2026 season previews are now coming out slowly on the channel. When you're seeing this, there will be at least one that is out. Right now, I only have the Anaheim Ducks video out, but we're planning on doing, obviously, all 32 teams, along with some more content there as well. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. But let's hop into the Boston Bruins, who 2 years ago in 2022-23 were a team that was the best team in the league. They went 65-12-5 for 135 points. They were first. They broke the wins record. They broke the points record. Only 12 regulation losses over the course of an entire season. Unbelievable. And then they lose in the first round to the Florida Panthers. Patrice Bergeron retires, and the team seems to just kind of fall off a cliff a little bit. They were still good the following year, though. 47-20-15 for 109 points. They were 7th in the National Hockey League. They did beat Toronto in the first round, but then their demise once again came to the Florida Panthers, and that's not the last time I will talk about Florida. In 2024-25, the team dropped off drastically. They went from a playoff team to a bottom 5 team. 33-39-10 for 76 points. They were 28th in the National Hockey League, which I think is bottom 6. Sorry, I was never good at math. Yeah, just an overall really bad year for the Boston Bruins, and we also saw as a result Brad Marchand get traded, Brandon Carlo get traded. There were a ton of things that also factored in there too. There were injuries to Charlie McAvoy, the Jeremy Swayman contract, Jim Montgomery was fired. It was just an entire dramatic season for the Boston Bruins, and they're hoping that this year is not as dramatic. But heading into this kind of new era for Boston, I guess, they still have Don Sweeney at the helm. He has been here for nearly 10 seasons. He has been the GM since 2015-2016, so I guess this is his 10th year as the general manager for the Boston Bruins. And a brand new coach is coming in. Marco Sturm will be the coach of the Boston Bruins. He has some previous experience coaching as an assistant around the NHL. So Sturm should be very interesting. He kind of brings that little bit of a younger feel. And for Boston, who is going to see some younger players play full-time minutes in this lineup, like, for example, Marek Kuznetsov, Fraser Minten. I'm sure Matthew Poitras is going to get some time this year. It could be an interesting year for Boston, and getting a guy there like Sturm could be a decent fit. So that being said, then, let's hop into the key arrivals and the key departures. Starting off with your key arrivals. The Bruins acquire Tanner Jeannot, Victor Arvidsson, Mikey Eyssimont, Sean Kuraly, Matej Blumel, and then Jordan Harris there as well. So going through the names individually, Jeannot was signed to a contract that I have publicly said in videos that I am not a fan of on the podcast. I just am not a fan of that signing, but we'll see how it goes. Victor Arvidsson could be an interesting trade. Again, like, he's a little bit overpaid. It doesn't really matter, though, to be honest with you. He's on the last year of that contract. They gave up like a 5th-round pick for him as well. It's not like they gave up the world for him. So, honestly, I'm not really too mad about that, but don't expect for like a 30-goal season from Arvidsson. I would be shocked if we see that this year. Mikey Eyssimont going to be more or less like a third-line player. He's always been a serviceable guy in that remark, so I don't really have a lot of hate on that front whatsoever. And then Sean Kuraly will be a decent 4th-line center. He was on Boston years ago. He left for Columbus, but now he's back in Massachusetts. He also signed Matej Blumel, going to be a depth player, and then Jordan Harris as well, both depth players on that roster. The key departures, there are not a lot of them, but actually, that's a lie. There is a lot of them, but they're not very important. I'm going to be blunt with you. I'll go through 4 of them here that I have mentioned. Cole Koep, Parker Wotherspoon, Jacob Lauko, and Oliver Wahlstrom. Those are some of the only notable guys who are no longer on the team. And honestly, none of them are that serious of players. I'm going to be blunt with you. I'm not like, oh my goodness, that's crazy that they let go of Jacob Lauko. Like, it's not a big deal. They have guys coming in to replace them. We'll see how those replacements work out, but it could be interesting. And then you look at the Bruins depth chart. So we're going to go through it here individually. I have them all up on screen. But starting off with the left wings, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, Marat Kuznetsov, Tanner Jeannot, that rounds out your 4. And then Johnny Beecher is listed as an extra left winger there on that side as well. Keep in mind, this is the Hockey News' depth chart. This is not my own depth chart. That way I don't miss anybody or do anything stupid. So I digress. You can probably think it's still stupid anyways. But yeah, Morgan Geekie had a very good season last year. I'm expecting for that to continue. I hope it wasn't just a one-hit wonder. I thought he had a really big step this year for Boston. Zacha, we'll see how he can be. I think on the left wing side is a little bit interesting. We shall see. He was being talked as a trade candidate by Boston. I've seen that recently surface through, so we'll see what happens there. Kuznetsov, young player. Tanner Jeannot, I already said my thoughts on him. And then Beecher, not a bad young player there on that left wing side whatsoever. You look at the center core, that's where some interesting stuff is at. Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, Fraser Mitten, Sean Corelli, that rounds out your 4. And then Matthew Poitras is listed as the extra center there as well. The fifth line center, you might call it. So overall, Lindholm had a rough year last year. I'm hoping for a little bit of a bounce back. I feel like he has not been the same since he left Calgary in the middle of the 23-24 season. So my hopes are not very high for him. Middlestat is also somebody who I have seen over the summer be listed as a trade candidate. I think if he has a good impact year, they could move him for maybe a second or a first round pick. It honestly depends on what the market is next year. Fraser Mitten, we saw him play a couple of games last year for Boston. He'll be an interesting case there as well. I'm wondering how he's going to be. He may make the team out of camp with how weak the center core is. Corrali there on your fourth line. It's decent fourth liner. And then Poitras, it just sucks because he really can't make this lineup. And I don't know what it is, but Boston won't put him in there. It sucks, but I guess it is what it is. Now on the right wing side, David Pastrnak, Victor Arvidsson, Mikey Eissimont, Mark Kastelik. That rounds out your 4. And then Matej Blumel is your extra guy. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, by the way. I don't really know him that well. But looking at that right wing side, I don't know if I want to say it's their strongest, but with Pastrnak, it just might be. Again, I don't really have to explain. Pastrnak has been phenomenal for this Bruins team for so long. He is their number 1 guy. He has been carrying this roster for years. I got no complaints when it comes to David Pastrnak. Arvidsson, again, I already said my piece on him. Same with Eissimont. I think both those guys, we'll see how they do, but they're low risk in my opinion. Kastelik will be a good fourth liner. I've been a big fan of him since the Ottawa days and him coming over in the Ullmark trade. I thought he did some pretty good moves for the Bruins and their depth, the Bruins. And then Matej Blumel is a depth forward more or less. So overall, looking at this forward core, outside of David Pastrnak, I'm going to be blunt with you, it's pretty average. And I hate to say that because these Boston teams have been good for many years, but I think we're starting to head into a point in time where Boston is just not what they were once. And it sucks, but that's what happens to every team who is in contention for nearly 10 seasons. So looking back then at the blue line, this is where it's at, in my opinion. I think this is where the Bruins kind of have their strongest area. So let's just hop right in. On the left shot side, Hampus Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Mason Lohrei, and then Michael Callahan is your extra on that lefty side. So rounding out your 3 there, Lindholm, Zadorov, Lohrei. Lindholm, he missed a lot of time last year. I wonder if that's going to make an impact on how he plays next year, but he is a big value defenseman there for the Bruins. That should not go unnoticed. Zadorov, I think, really had his struggles this past year, so I'm hoping things will kind of bounce back in this coming year. As for Lohrei, had one of the worst years in the entire NHL last year. He had the worst plus-minus of any team in the National Hockey League, and that's coming off of a pretty good, I would say, like rookie half-a-season campaign, I believe. He did a really good job in his rookie year. I still think I'm not going to give up on him because, again, all defensemen have big struggles throughout their career. I mean, playing third pairing isn't always that great either. You see who his partner is on the depth chart. But honestly, I'm not going to just count him out here just yet. On the right shot side, Charlie McAvoy, Henri Jokiharju, Andrew Peeke rounds out your 3, and then Jordan Harris and Max Wanner are some extra defensemen there for me as well. Going through them, McAvoy missed a lot of time last year. He was out since the Four Nations. I remember when it was announced that he was not coming back for the season. The Bruins were close to the playoff line. They weren't above it, I don't think, but they were somewhat close. I marked them off as, no, they're not making the playoffs. Just like, you lose McAvoy, your number one guy, the guy who brings the most value to this team, besides Pastrnak, I would say. So, just want to put that out there. It's detrimental. So, again, I thought that they were done for after that. Yokiharu's a new ad. He was acquired at the trade deadline. That'll be a little bit of a fun one to see how that plays out, but I guess we'll see how that goes. And then Andrew Peeke, again, as I said, like Lehigh, it's not ideal playing third-line minutes alongside Peeke, but I guess we'll see on that back end. And then Harris and Wanner probably won't see a lot of time. Harris was involved in the Patrick Laine trade, ironically enough. He was in Columbus last year. I think he did play some NHL games, but now he is off and over to Boston. And then Wanner was acquired in the Frederick deal. I did some research on him in the prospect pool reviews in the last couple of years. He's all right. He's nothing serious, in my opinion. And then you are looking at the goaltending. It is basically the same as it was last year. Jeremy Swayman, Yoannes Korpisalo, Mikey DiPietro, and that's your line there for the top three. And then Luke Cavalin, who I talked about in the prospect pool reviews, was a Calder Cup or a Kelly Cup champion with Trois Rivières. I know that from my Royals reporting and all that stuff. But regardless, looking at this goaltending for the Bruins, Swayman, and it's one of my questions, so I'm not going to go too in-depth with it, but he needs a bounce-back year. He needs a bounce-back year from last year. Last year was absolutely brutal. Yoannes Korpisalo wasn't bad at times, but again, was wildly inconsistent, not good enough to get Boston the wins that they needed from a backup goaltender. DiPietro's been there for a very long time. We'll see how he plays and if he gets games. And then Cavalin, I just put him there for fun. Again, you're putting fourth-string goaltenders, unless if the Bruins suffer injuries, which isn't impossible. We've seen it before. I doubt he gets NHL games this year. But honestly, for the ECHL version of me who has spent some time reporting on the ECHL teams, I hope he does play NHL games. So, speaking of Swayman and some of the biggest questions that are facing the Boston Bruins right now, how will Swayman improve? So last year he had a 3.11 goals against average and a .892 save percentage. Yeah, it was a brutal year, and it was brutal from like September all the way to the end of the season. It was just not good. It felt like with the contract negotiations and all that beef that was going on between them and Cam Neely, and how, Neely was throwing out like, oh, I have 30 million reasons why I wouldn't be, all that stuff. I don't know if it was 30 million, it was like a year ago at this point, which is still wild to me. But regardless, going back to the topic at hand, I think if he gets training camp, he will bounce back. I think it feels like, especially for a goaltender, you see this a lot with skaters. Skaters do kind of get on their feet. When you're a goalie, you kind of need that training camp. You need that training camp to get yourself conditioned, to get yourself back into it. And mind you, training camp is a full, 2-3 weeks with preseason games included. When they signed Swayman, it was I think 48 hours before opening night. And of course he didn't play. Korpisalo was the starting goaltender. But it puts you a step behind everybody else. And I think that plays a massive factor. So do I think he bounces back? Yeah, I think he does. With training camp and then the preseason games, I think I would not be shocked if Jeremy Swayman bounces back this year. But if he doesn't, there's some real trouble there. So the other question involves something we have been talking about with Boston for years. I've been making YouTube videos for almost 6 years now. This is my 6th or 7th edition of the season previews. It is about, will the power play, which maybe not the power play, but more or less the offense, will the offense improve? Will it bounce back? The power play was brutal this past year, and you would think that with the team that they had, you think it'd actually be pretty decent. But no, I understand why it was bad after the trade deadline, but still, definitely needs to improve. And to be honest with you, unlike Swayman, my hope is not that high on this offense improving. I think it's going to be a lot of Pastrnak carrying the workload once again. Maybe there are other Bruins fans who think differently than me and are much higher on Arvidsson and Jeannot, and they are higher on Middlestat. Maybe Minnan takes a big step, but that's a lot of what-ifs for me. Outside of Pastrnak, your scoring was very, very dry. You had Morgan Geekie there who was providing some offense, but that was about it. Like when Marchand left, it was Pastrnak carrying the workload. Yeah, I don't expect for the offense to improve, especially with the fact that they brought in just guys who aren't really goal scorers, to be honest with you. I look at this team, I don't think the offense improves unless if Charlie McAvoy opens like a whole new offensive side to his game. I would be shocked, but I just think the offense stays the same or maybe even it gets worse, to be honest. A full year without Brad Marchand, I genuinely don't know. So now it's time to get into the final segment where we ask the question of standings, playoffs, cup. Yeah, I'm just going to be blunt here. I don't think a cup is in the odds of the Bruins. Neither is the playoffs. I hate to break it to you guys. This team feels the same to me. They feel the exact same as they did when they ended off their season. Maybe the offense gets slightly better. Maybe they're more fun to watch. But to be honest with you, unless if Jeremy Swayman, David Pastrnak, and Charlie McAvoy, with a few others like Lindholm and such, unless if those guys put this team on their back, on their shoulders, I don't think they make the playoffs. I think, to be honest with you, they finished last in the Atlantic Division. And that's a good thing, honestly. You look at how this 2026 draft is shaping itself up, there's a lot of optimism there for things to be good. Now, hopefully, Boston won't mess this up. Now, keep in mind, they do have Toronto's first-round pick there as well. I believe they have Florida's, too. I don't know why the light's cutting out. I apologize. I'm still trying to fix that. But regardless, I don't know. Their cup odds are 80-1. They have some draft picks that they can work with next year. Maybe it's a good thing they finish really bad. And who knows? Maybe they get that big guy from Penn State. So we shall see what happens with the Boston Bruins this year, but my expectation is really not for the playoffs. I think for this year it's going to be about the little things that, you see improvement with some of the youth there, Mitten, Kuznetsov, etc. Maybe you see Geeky have another really good year and take a step forward. Maybe the defense improves. It's about the little things in Boston this year for me. So I'm not expecting playoffs, but I've been wrong before. We'll see what happens. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video down below and subscribe if you are new. Again, let me know your thoughts on the new camera. I understand that the lighting is coming in and out. I've done a better job at doing that. There's also a sound in the back, and as well as that too, I keep looking at the screen here and not the actual camera itself, so I do apologize for that. But let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.